the way that the world banks today, right? You have to give credit to a German Jew named Meyer Rothschild. This was a guy who was in Germany and established a bank in Germany, and then understood how money works in result to power, right? Of course, we know that money was instituted way back when, if you want to go down that conspiracy theory, which I'm not, but the Knights Templar established the banking and money system, but we'll pull out of that. So Meyer Rothschild discovered or started a bank out in Germany. And so what he ended up doing was to me, it was quite genius, right? So once he had his sons, he sent them across Europe to 5 different parts of Europe, right? To where he established banks in London, Paris, Naples, right? Germany, and one other country, to where he had it to where he was instrumental in being close to governments. He understood relationships and power.
In politics.
So if I'm cool with whoever the prime minister is, that the government that controls that country, if I get close enough to understand, see, once you build relationships with people, what happens is people get comfortable and they start to talk. Mm-hmm. So when the country folds or they in trouble, right? Everybody should understand that to run a government organization is not by any means free. It costs us money to run any organization we choose to run.
Absolutely.
So he understood it perfectly, established himself in 5 different countries, and was very close with political figures to establish a movement that if the country needed money, he would be the ally to bring in and fund the money. Now, here's where morals come into play. Right? So this is where the Bible gets into where we misunderstand the scripture on money, the root of all evil, right? So all acts of evil is what the scriptures say. But where we get into morals is how people handle the power that they have. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess the side of the fence you choose to be on, Meyer Rothschild was one of those people who consumed finance to consume and control government. He said, I care nothing about the government and its system. I care more so about the money. He who has the money controls the government, who controls the politics. And he was a prime example of that. All wars that funded against countries, he funded both sides of it, right? Whoever was at war, they funded both sides of it. Mm-hmm. Even down to be particular about this, right? Even down to Hitler. Hitler was funded, and it was funded through Rothschilds, right? And so he was one of the people who established the funding system against countries, war against war. Now, war brings in money, war brings in rule, war brings in military, and it produces power and control. Now, to understand why he even established that, you got to understand that back in the day, there was an economist named Stuart Crane, right? This was out of a book called None Dare Call It Conspiracy, where he explained exactly how if for banks to make money, they lend out money and they collect interest on the money, which gives the bank income to have more money. Mm-hmm. So back in those days, for kingdoms and kings to receive money, what banks would do, right? And if anybody watched Game of Thrones, this was on there. What banks would do is they would put somebody in a they will put somebody inside the house, basically. So if I'm a king and I ask you bank for money, and I say, hey, if you say, hey, I'm gonna give you $1 billion at whatever percent interest, I need my money back by this date, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So in order for you to make sure and ensure that your money is being well kept and protected, you get a seat at my table in my kingdomhood, right? And it's the same thing that works for politics. If I go to the prime minister, if I go to the president, I'm lending you money. I got a seat at this table to ensure my monetary interest.
For sure. It was nobility who had influence and money who got a seat at the table.
Right.
And therefore got access to money and land.
Right.
To continue the wealth building of themselves.
Right.
That's kind of how they went. Yeah.
That's how they influence your favorite subject, politics. Right, through the people who had the seat at the table.
Right, because if I'm sitting at the table next to the king and the king writes the rules, then the king is he's gonna bend to my ear and lend to me because of our relationship.
Right.
Than the money that I'm seeding and funding you.
Okay, now y'all see we agree. Look,
yeah, we on it.
We in it. We in the money.
I don't think we've never been in it. I just think we need to play that game.
For sure.
We
look in the money. We in the money, right? So all right, let's speed this up. So we understand the establishment that Meyer Rothschild has is a visionary, right? I think is one of the most ingenious things that he probably could have thought about or did, right? Regardless if you like him, not like him, Jew, no Jew, whatever that looks like, right? And so then you have people seeing that countries was bended by the rule of money and centralized banks, because that's what he established. All the centralized banks are owned by private institutions or companies, if you will, who own banks, right? Now we get to America. And America is established, and the basis of American freedom was to be free from British control, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. British control, and establish a rule. They seen an opportunity of new land, new opportunity, new wealth being built, own rules being played. These are white men who thought this through and built this out.
For sure.
And when they built it based off the rules that they had through Declaration of Independence, they freedoms from the British and all that stuff, they had one particular race and gender in mind when they did it. It's not necessarily about black or white. At that time, it was about white men, period.
Facts.
That's all it was about.
For sure. I don't think anyone is in discrepancy of that.
Right. So see, sometimes, I like to do this because I think that we get caught up, especially today, we get caught up in emotions of an opinion or a fact or a thing. And we never go deep to understand, well, how did we get emotional? That's how did we even get to this point where we are emotional, right? And so we bringing it back. So, the heads of America understood the power play that the Rothschilds and international and centralized banks had on the countries in Europe. And so when they came to establish America, they didn't want that. In fact, Thomas Jefferson wrote specifically that, basically, we shouldn't be controlled and ruled by banks.
For sure.
Right?
That was the ultimate control in being independent from the church and the British government.
Right. But see, the Rothschilds understood that the key to government was control. How you gain control was through money, right? So much, in fact, that President Jackson, he abolished the central, because we did have a central bank. He abolished it in 1836, right? So then you got to understand the players. You got Rothschilds and his interests, right? And so it's said that he has agents of underneath him, meaning people who protect his interests or who
lobbyists,
current
right? Day lobbyists,
all
for
of
sure.
Right. That's a prime example, right? So and that's how that established. One of the people who was instrumental in that was a man named Paul Warburg, who's from Germany and is German. Right along with Rothschild, they both established banks. His family had banks. Rothschild's family had banks. Was the one who first established that. So then what happened is, now we in America, of course. America is establishing its freedom. America want to be separate from banks. They don't want to have rule over banks. They don't want to have private people telling government what to do. They wanted the government to be free for the people, or for white people, white men specifically, and their rule and their interests, right? But things happen in America where we go through wars and
people. Things happen. Time, changing, culture, mindset,
right,
attitudes about things.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I guess a little bit to understand that is you got to understand the key players in America from a business perspective. So this will be people like the Rockefellers.
Heavy bankers. It was heavy banking and insurance.
Yep.
Right? They're
J.P. Morgan.
Definitely J.P.
Rockefellers, Vanderbilt, and Carnegie. Right?
Because this is also during the around the Gilded Age is when industrialization was happening, right? America is excited about paving a new way. And so how do you do that with money? You have to fuel the industry that is fueling industry, right? You had coal and you had railroads and you had things happening that needed to be funded, right? Stocks were huge. Like bankers were the thing, right? In industries, you're getting into coal. Like it's like we need the coals because the trains are running. They're taking stuff from the West Coast to the East Coast. Also, it's industry. Yeah. People are making a lot of money. Yeah. And so but it also shows the lack of regulation and why you do need rules in place. Because to me, the Fed also helps prop up, right, what we have now, which is our banking system when a collapse happens. And that's why it came about, the collapse. And I think it was 1907 that helped create the perfect environment to then seize on the moment to say, hey, J.P. Morgan has the money to help prop up these banks. Same thing that just happened with the California banks, right? The businesses who had the liquidity to fund and put money in the market to help the banks either buy them out, prop them up, because they knew that, hey, if we have a run on the banks, if people want to pull their money out, we're in a bad place here. It's a tale old as time, right? Banks don't hold money. They leverage money. They use our money to fund the projects to rent to you. They basically rent a center. They rent you the money at a premium. And so they're not holding it. So if everyone goes and says, I want my money back, we have a problem. That's what they call run on the banks. And so that's what happened in 1907 through some basically betting. They were betting against, stocks, and it wasn't as regulated, and they didn't have the liquidity. The stock fell. The bank went bankrupt, and it was a run. They're like, oh, wait, but that bank also held the note and it had money for other banks. And so J.P. Morgan was like, okay, well, I got some money. I can help y'all out.
The government came to him.
I got some money. I can help you guys out. We have a central banking system to help prop up the banks so that we don't have people losing faith in the system, wanting to take their money because we need their money. If they don't put their money with us, this system can't work. We are not a bank if we cannot collect money, right? And so he, saw opportunity, got the other banks together. It was him and I forgot some of the other bankers that were involved, but he was very instrumental in it in setting up for the central banking system, which is now known as the Fed.
For sure. So,
which is why his bank they're very prominent today because of that history.
Yeah. And so to understand J.P. Morgan, right, you got to understand his father and his father's history, right?
Coming from money.
They were had really good relationships with the Rothschilds, right? So everything his father knew, some of that stuff he was like mentored or brought up through the Rothschilds, and he established what's known today, in my opinion, from the investment banking standpoint. Yep. J.P. Morgan's father was the one who owned a bank, but he understood that, hey, people are going to start businesses. Yeah. And some businesses might need funding and some businesses might fail. So if I could come in a non-profitable business and make them profitable, now he has a piece of the business, so he gets a percentage and he gave him money, which interest on the loan. Yeah. So he established killed two birds with one stone. I got interest in your business and I got percentages off the loans that I'm lending, right? And so J.P. Morgan was very instrumental as he tried to show up his father in creating a name for himself in America. All right, y'all, it's a wrap.
Listen, like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends to come check us us out at the Mind Your Biz podcast, y'all.
And we'll see y'all in another episode of Minding Your Biz. Peace.